And when I got in there, all I knew was make sure I come out victorious. But people don't respect the mental part about that. Like, people don't respect it. All they want to say is, oh, you were scared or you ran.
So it is not necessary. It is unnecessary to go in through that process and blame the money, because it has nothing to do with the money.
Guys like him, man, I just try to ignore them, because at the end of the day, I could really get on his ass with his business and talk about what he doing that's dumb as a motherfucker. It's a bunch of dumb shit, Mr.
Shakur Stevenson stripped of his 135 lightweight WBC crown. Hit the Tyson belt. They stripped him. He just stuck a toe in 1-4.
For the biggest win of his career, Shakur Stevenson called the WBC crooks and refused to hand over $100,000. Terence Crawford jumped in, firing shots at the organization, telling them they're still mad about what happened between them. But here's the question nobody in boxing is asking. Could Shakur actually take the WBC to court and win? The answer involves a federal lawsuit that changed boxing history, laws that protect fighters that most fans have never even heard of, and a legal precedent that proves sanctioning bodies aren't untouchable. Just days earlier, everything looked perfect for Shakur Stevenson. On January 31st, 2026, music inside Madison Square Garden, Shakur delivered a masterclass against Teofimo Lopez. It wasn't controversial. It wasn't close. He controlled the pace, shut down Lopez's offense, and left no doubt in the judges' minds. By the end of the night, Shakur walked away with a Ring magazine title, music, and the WBO junior welterweight belt, officially becoming a 4-division world champion, a milestone that places fighters in elite generational company. Then came the music twist. Within days, the WBC announced they were stripping Shakur of their lightweight title. The nation was procedural. They claim fighters aren't allowed to hold championships across different weight classes under separate sanctioning bodies at the same time. But Shakur wasn't buying that explanation. He fired back, accusing the WBC of retaliating because he refused to pay their $100,000 sanctioning fee for a fight they weren't even involved in. Music, his words were blunt. According to Shakur, the WBC didn't have anything to do with this fight in the first place, and this wasn't an isolated incident.
I thoroughly don't give a shit. Huh? Listen, I thoroughly don't give a shit. And to go further, I don't think Shakur Stevenson should give one shit either.
Just months earlier, Terence Crawford himself had been stripped under eerily similar circumstances. To Shakur's camp, this didn't look like rule enforcement. It looked personal, and that's music, where things started to feel bigger than one belt. To understand why Shakur's situation matters, you have to go back to 1998. That's when German boxer Graziano Raggigiani did something almost unheard of. He beat the system. Music, Raggigiani defeated Michael Nunn to win the WBC Light Heavyweight Championship after Roy Jones Jr. had vacated the title. The WBC officially recognized Raggigiani as the world champion. His career trajectory changed overnight. Bigger fights, bigger money, global recognition. Then everything unraveled. Roy Jones Jr. decided he wanted the belt back. Instead of ordering a fight or following standard procedures, music, the WBC made a stunning move. They reinstated Jones as champion and informed Raggigiani that his title reign had been a typographical error, not a disputed decision, not a rules violation, a typo.
A beautiful performance, a dominating performance. The WBC, in a rush to do nothing. In a rush to do nothing. Can't give this dude a week.
Raggigiani didn't accept it. Music, he took the WBC to U.S. federal court, arguing that the organization violated its own regulations and destroyed his earning potential. Sponsors disappeared. Title defenses vanished. Music, His market value collapsed, and against all odds, he won. In July 2004, the WBC quietly settled the music case. Rock G. Johnny received financial compensation, and the boxing world was forced to acknowledge a reality most fans still don't realize. Sanctioning bodies are not untouchable. That case didn't just embarrass the WBC. Music, it set a legal precedent. Here's where things get even more serious. Most fans have never heard of the Muhammad Ali Boxing Reform Act, but it may be the most powerful music tool a fighter has outside the ring. Passed in 1996 and expanded in 2000, music, the act was designed to protect boxers from exploitative practices by promoters and sanctioning organizers.
Jones Jr. I don't give a care who they bring to you.
Man,
You are welcome to come get you some. Whoever wants some can come get some. They know what to do. Call HBO, tell HBO what to tell them what you want to do. And y'all know Roy Jones Jr. bars none.
Thank you very much.
Because if this ever moved beyond social media and into a courtroom, it wouldn't just be about Shakur Stevenson. It would be about whether the old rules of boxing power still apply in the modern era. If this ever moved beyond headlines and into a courtroom, Shakur's legal team wouldn't be starting from scratch. There are several angles they could explore. Music, and each one cuts directly into how sanctioning bodies operate behind the scenes. First, there's breach of contract. If Shakur had an active agreement with the WBC, whether written or implied through participation in rankings, the organization may have violated that relationship by stripping him immediately without due process. Courts often, music, look closely at whether organizations follow their own timelines and notice requirements, not just whether they had the power to act. Then there's tortious interference, a legal concept that hits where it hurts most: money. Championship status isn't symbolic. It determines purse splits, pay-per-view points, sponsorship leverage, and international marketability. By removing that title, the WBC may have directly interfered with Shakur's ability to negotiate future fights at the highest level. Another major argument centers on rule violations. Just like in the Rock Johnny case, the question wouldn't be whether the music WBC has rules, but whether they follow them. If their own regulations outlined a grace period, review process, or specific criteria for stripping a champion, skipping those steps could be legally significant. There's also the issue of arbitrary and inconsistent enforcement. Why do some champions get months, music, or even years to unify, move divisions, or resolve conflicts while Shakur was stripped in a matter of days?
Recently shared that open letter with the boxing community regarding the Muhammad Ali Act. For all the fans watching, why is this issue so important right now?
Well, there's a lot of confusion, very unfortunate concern around the boxing community, unnecessary attacks, unnecessary noise that has been created.
Courts take selective enforcement seriously, especially when it appears personal or retaliatory. Finally, music. There's restraint of trade, a phrase that appears directly in federal boxing law. Gong.
Great sport, and in reality, there is no one that can claim to own the sport. No organization, no league, no boxer, no champion, no one person. Boxing is a great sport. It's a worldwide sport, and it belongs to the boxers and to the...
Boxing fans have watched countless champions hold belts while chasing bigger opportunities. Some moved up divisions without being stripped. Others delayed mandatory defenses for years. In many cases, the WBC music granted exemptions, extensions, or outright exceptions. So why was Shakur treated differently? That question alone opens the door to the double standard argument. If the WBC enforced its rules strictly in some cases and flexibly in others, a court could view that as arbitrary and capricious decision-making, a legal term. Music that judges do not take lightly. Shakur didn't hide his belief. He accused the WBC of targeting him because of their issues with Terence Crawford, saying, in essence, you've got beef with Bud, so you're coming at me. If that claim could be supported by timelines, communications, or patterns, music of enforcement, it changes the narrative entirely. At that point, the stripping wouldn't look like governance. It would look like retaliation. And courts are far less willing to protect organizations that punish individuals selectively, especially when those decisions affect livelihoods. But even with a strong argument, the road forward wouldn't be easy. For all the leverage Shakur might have, there are real barriers that could stop a lawsuit before it ever gains momentum.
Dude, Shakur has told the world I'm a 135 pounder. I plan on competing at 135 unless there's a situation that presents itself.
WBC are going through right now, and this battle with Zuffa, where, they've got some real big players and power over there, and they're saying, F the belts, and WBC are fighting, saying, no, the belts mean music stuff. The WBC's first line of defense would be simple: their rule book. They would argue that their regulations clearly prohibit holding championships across different weight classes and organizations, and that Shakur knowingly violated those rules. Even more, music important, the WBC's bylaws grant them sole discretion in enforcing championships. That phrase, music, exists for a reason. It's designed to shield the organization from legal challenges. Then there's the issue of jurisdiction. Music, the WBC is headquartered in Mexico, operates internationally, and sanctions fights across dozens of countries. Determining where a lawsuit could even be filed would be complex and heavily contested. There's also the practical reality, money, and time. Federal litigation isn't cheap. Legal fees could climb into the hundreds of thousands, possibly more. And history shows these cases don't move quickly. The Rock Gianni lawsuit dragged on for years. Shakur is in his physical prime. Every year spent fighting in court is a year not spent building legacy in the ring. And there's always the risk that the financial recovery wouldn't match the legal cost.
One of the biggest reasons is that Shakur has always said, I want to go up to fight Tio, but I want to come back down to 135. So basically, he's almost telling the WBC, let me go up there, I will come back down. And with what the WBC are going through right now, and this battle with Zuffa, where, they've got some real big players and power over there, and they're saying F the belts, and WBC are fighting, saying no, the belts.
From the WBC's perspective, they'd argue they acted within their authority, followed internal procedures, and enforced rules that fighters agree to when entering their rankings. Music, which brings us to what legal experts are actually saying. Sports law attorneys familiar with boxing disputes. Music tend to agree on one thing. Very few of these cases ever reach a jury. Most sanctioning body lawsuits are resolved quietly. Settlements happen behind closed doors, often because organizations want to avoid creating legal precedent that other fighters could use. Experts point out that the Muhammad Ali Boxing Reform Act gives fighters more leverage than they realize, especially when it comes to disclosures, fees, and consistency of enforcement. Several law firms now openly advertise experience representing fighters against sanctioning bodies, something that would have been unthinkable decades ago. And in a recent federal case in 2023, a professional boxer was awarded $1.3 million after expert testimony demonstrated economic harm caused by unfair practices. Still, the consensus is cautious. Shakur may have grounds to challenge the decision, but litigation is risky, music expensive, and unpredictable. Some attorneys suggest an alternative route, filing formal complaints with state athletic commissions, music, or the Association of Boxing Commissions. These pathways don't carry the same financial, music risk, but they also lack the immediate impact of a lawsuit. The strategic question remains: would suing actually help Shakur, or would it quietly make him a problem? Music, no sanctioning body wants to deal with. That question leads to the bigger picture. Whether Shakur ever files a lawsuit or not, the timing of this controversy matters. The boxing landscape is shifting. Dana White and Zuffa Boxing are openly challenging the traditional model. Music, Terence Crawford walked away rather than continue paying sanctioning fees.
Has have a public spat, a public back and forth with one of the biggest names in boxing right now. Now, Shakur Stevenson is one of the biggest names in boxing. And the thing about Shakur as well, you piss him off, this guy will go straight to social media and make it known that he's pissed off. And that's what he's done. He's made it known what the WBC are wanting, or wanted for him, or from him, which was $100,000.
More fighters are publicly questioning where their money goes and why. The old system relies on silence and compliance, and that music silence is breaking. If Shakur sued and won, it wouldn't just be about his music belt. It could force sanctioning bodies to apply rules consistently, disclose fee structures transparently, and rethink how much power they really have. Music, of course, there's another outcome. The system could dig in, isolate fighters who push back, and continue business as usual. Either way, something is changing, and fighters now have more leverage and more information than ever before. Which brings us to the final question. The legal reality is complicated. Shakur Stevenson likely has a case, at least enough to challenge the decision seriously. History shows it can be done. Federal law exists to protect fighters in exactly these situations, but the practical costs are enormous. Time, money, career momentum, and the risk of becoming an outsider in a sport that still relies on relationships. For now, Shakur's strategy appears clear. Apply public pressure, use social media, lean on the credibility of Terence Crawford. Music, force the conversation into the open. And maybe that's the point. Because the real question isn't whether Shakur should sue, it's whether boxing can afford to keep operating this way without someone eventually forcing change in court. And this time, the entire world is watching.